Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right, we're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go! I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
The story you're about to enjoy was inspired by Zoe. Thank you so much, Zoe, for your amazing idea. Peyton was the cutest little penguin in Winter Wonderland Village. With a splendid smile and fantastic flippers, always ready to give and get a hug from a friend. Peyton spent her days playing in the snow, sledding down hills on her belly, warming up with cups of hot chocolate, and ice skating on Winter Wonderland's Village wonderful frozen lake. Peyton loved ice skating more than any other winter activity and took every opportunity she could to twirl, swirl, and leap on the sparkling frozen lake just at the edge of her village. Her friends loved skating too, but were not as good as Peyton. They watched in awe as she zoomed around the ice and soared through the air, completing tricks they could never dream of doing. They cheered on their friend and happily watched as she glided around the lake on chilly winter days. However, Peyton didn't care about the praise or the cheering. She was just happy to spend those chilly winter days with her closest friend. "Great job, Peyton!" called out her best friend Peter, a polar bear that Peyton had known her whole life. "Thank you, Peter," called out Peyton with a big smile as she came to a stop right in front of her friend, sending a wave of crystal ice swirling through the air. "Snowstorm!" called out Peter. He loved the way Peyton could make it snow whenever she wanted by sliding to a quick stop on the ice. The two friends decided to spend a little time on the lake that day while they waited for their friend, Levi and Ivy, to join them. Levi and Ivy had been visiting Winter Wonderland Village for years with their parents and loved seeing Peyton and Peter. They also enjoyed ice skating and every winter hoped that they could learn some new skating moves from Peyton. She made them look easy, so they thought for sure one of these years they'd be able to skate as good as she could. As Peyton and Peter waited for their friends, they made snow creatures and ice forts. They worked hard on their creations, laughing and talking all the way. Then all of a sudden, they heard a noise coming from behind a circle of pine trees. "Do you hear that?" asked Peyton with a smile. She knew what, or should I say who it was, but loved to play and wanted to see what would happen next. "Yep, it sounds like something or someone crunching through the snow," answered Peter with a smile. He winked at Peyton as he also knew who was making the noise too. He pointed with the paw toward the trees and mentioned that he and Peyton should tiptoe over and surprise the visitors. Peyton nodded her head as she followed Peter. Once they reached the circle of pine trees, Peyton whispered to Peter, "1, 2, 3, then pointed her flipper at the trees. They both knew what to do. They leapt through the air and tumbled through the pine tree branches, landing right in front of... "Levi, Ivy, it's so great to see you!" exclaimed Peyton. "We knew it was you. What took you so long to get here?" asked Peter. But before Levi and Ivy could answer, or even dust the snow off themselves, Peyton wrapped her flippers around them, giving them the biggest and best penguin hug ever. "I missed you both so much," said Peyton, hugging her friends tight. "Get in here, Peter." Not wanting to miss out on one of Peyton's famous hugs, Peter jumped at the chance to join the snuggle. "Yeah, it's so great to see you," added Peter. "We have so many fun things planned for your visit." Peyton backed up, giving Levi and Ivy a little room to breathe, and again asked what took them so long to get to Winter Wonderland Village. "Usually you two are here early in the morning so we can get the most out of your time here," said Peyton. "It's after lunchtime. What happened?" Levi and Ivy continued to brush snow out of their hair as they answered Peyton and Peter's curious questions. "What happened was a cold," said Levi. "But it's always cold here. Why would that slow you down?" said Peter. "No, not like cold like the temperature. Cold like being sick," giggled Ivy. "Our parents each have a cold. They're doing better now, but they've had runny noses and have been sneezing for days. It took them a little longer to get moving this morning, so that's why we're late," added Levi. "Oh, I get it now," said Peyton. "I'm sure the fresh, crisp Winter Wonderland Village air will have them both feeling better in no time. Or maybe they just need a Peyton hug. Well, I think your hugs could cure a cold, giggled Levi. I'm sure they just need a little more time to rest and they'll be all good. When we headed down here to look for you and Peter, the Winter Wonderland Village doctor was with them. He gave them some tasty tea and told them to take it easy for another day or two. That sounds like a good plan, said Peyton. So how about while we wait for them to feel better, we do a little ice skating? It didn't take Levi and Ivy more than 2 seconds to grab their skates out of their bags and race toward the lake. Peyton and Peter followed close behind. As their friends laced up their skates, they pointed toward a beautiful house on a hill overlooking the lake. That's where we're staying this weekend, explained Levi. Our parents figured it would be best to stay in a place where they could watch us on the lake since they can't be down here with us like they usually are. So they switched our reservations right before we left. Levi and Ivy finished tying their skates and stood up by the edge of the lake. They turned toward the big house on the hill and waved to their parents who were sitting out on the porch sipping their tea. Hi, Levi and Ivy, called out their mom. Hi, Peyton and Peter. Be careful out there. We will, Mom, called back Ivy as she took her first step out onto Winter Wonderland Village's frozen lake. It was nothing sort of magical. Surrounded by hills glistening with snow, the rest of the world seemed to fade away as Ivy pushed off and began to skate toward the center of the lake. Levi followed close behind, his arms outstretched as he tried to get his balance so he didn't fall. It had been a year since they had skated, but as soon as they started gliding around everything Peyton had taught them over the years came flooding back. They gained their confidence back and began to move faster and faster on the ice. In a matter of minutes, they were twirling, swirling, and leaping as if they had been skating every day. Great job, Levi and Ivy, called out Peyton as her friends zoomed around the lake. Wow, look at them go, added Peter. They're almost as good as you, Peyton. Peyton could have not been prouder of her friends, and she and Peter joined them in the center of the lake. The four friends glided around the frozen lake, skating faster and faster as they made loop after loop. They laughed and joked and tried new tricks as a light snow began to fall. I feel like I'm in a dream, called out Ivy to Peyton. I love Winter Wonderland Village. But little did they know there was someone else down the lake. Someone who was ready to turn their daydream into a bad dream. Oh no. Hey Peyton, do you know that person? Asked Levi as he did a spin in the air but fell as he tried to land. Peyton turned to see who Levi was looking at, and as she did, she lost her balance and tumbled onto the ice. As she slid towards the edge of the lake, trying to stop herself, Peter skated past her. I know who it is, he called out as he stumbled onto a bump on the ice and went sliding into a snowbank at the edge of the lake. What is going on with all of you? Asked Ivy as she skated toward her brother and friends. Why does it look like all of a sudden you all forgot how to skate? And as soon as those words left her mouth, Ivy too lost her balance unexpectedly and fell with a plop on the ice. We didn't forget how to skate, said Peyton. It's a spell. A spell cast by her. That's when Peyton stood up and pointed to a shadowy figure looming behind a tall pine tree not too far from the edge of the lake. The light snowfall was making it hard to see the person clearly, but all of a sudden the figure started to walk towards them. Levi and Ivy were nervous, not knowing who it was, but Peyton and Peter walked confidently toward the person, each with a scowl on their face. This was so unusual for Peyton especially, who usually wore a big smile and was ready with a friendly hug for whoever needed it. What brings you to the lake, Sydney? Asked Peyton as the figure walked closer into view. Yeah, we could have gotten hurt, Sydney. That wasn't very nice, added Peter. If you want to skate with us, you can. You don't always have to play mean tricks on us. Peter, you know that we've tried a million times to be nice to Sydney, and it just doesn't work, said Peyton. So please, just leave us alone and we'll leave you alone, just like you want. Levi and Ivy still didn't know exactly what was going on, so they hopped up and tried their best to follow Peyton and Peter through the snow with their ice skates on. Who is Sydney? Asked Levi to Peyton and Peter as they were now standing in front of Sydney. She was a little girl about Levi and Ivy's age, dressed in a sparkling blue cloak and giant glittery fur boots. Sydney is a witch, and not a nice one, answered Peyton. She lives just outside Winter Wonderland Village, and no matter how many times Peter and I have tried to be friendly to her, she would rather play tricks and cast spells on us. Yep, that is about right, said Sydney with a smirk. Playing tricks and casting spells is just so much fun. Sorry. Come on, Levi and Ivy, let's head back to the ice, began Peyton. As long as we don't look at her, we can skate undisturbed. No more falling. Oh, I'm sure there'll be some falling, laughed Sydney. I was watching you skate the other day, and you're not as great as you used to be, Peyton. Not as great as she used to be, exclaimed Peter. She's the best ice skater in all of Winter Wonderland Village. Maybe even the world. Well, why don't you prove it, said Sydney, trying to engage Peyton. And unfortunately for Peyton, it worked. I can skate better than you with both flippers tied behind my back, said Peyton. Great! That sounds like a challenge to me, answered Sydney. But let's make it a little more interesting. And as Sydney said that, she took a wooden wand from her pocket and swirled it in the air around Peter. Then in just a few seconds, Peter was frozen solid, only able to blink and move his eyes. What did you do? Exclaimed Peyton. That's not funny. Unfreeze Peter right now. Oh, I absolutely will, said Sydney. Okay, good, said Peyton as she rushed over to Peter and did the only thing she could think of. She gave him a big hug. I'll unfreeze Peter after you or your friends win the ice skating contest, giggled Sydney as she made her wand disappear into her cloak. Peter seems to think you're the best ice skater in the world, so this should be no problem at all, right? What skating contest? Asked Peyton. What are you talking about? And as she was asking that question, the snow began to fall harder and harder, and a fierce wind blew down from the hilltops. Peyton, Peter, Levi, and Ivy covered their eyes and huddled together. When it all stopped in just a minute or two, they opened their eyes and saw a very different scene at the lake. This contest, answered Sydney. Peyton, Levi, and Ivy all looked around and saw a big table with a sign in front of it that read, Judges. There were bright and colorful flags lining the edge of the lake and stands filled with people and animals from Winter Wonderland Village waiting for the ice skating contest to begin. Peyton, Levi, and Ivy stood by Peter, looking very nervous. However, they had to help their friend and knew exactly what to do. They accepted Sydney's challenge and got ready to skate. Hey friends, that is part 1 of this story. Come back soon for part 2. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun Lively Lewis story with you.